wow, they have pills that will make you happy. They'll pull me out of this low self-esteem, and I'll be a normal teenager. People will want to be my friends now.
I saw the commercials. The commercials are, you take this and you'll be all better.
The glass coffee table had been broken, and there were still pieces laying around the basement. So I picked up one of the pieces, and I thought to myself, people slit their wrists when they want to die.
Because I thought that if I cut a big enough hole, then what I did would go away.
And they said that we have a gun, and he shot himself.
I had a window in my room, and sometimes I'd think of jumping out.
After second period, went to the bathroom and took the shoelaces from her shoes and hung herself.
12-year-old girls just don't kill themselves.
It's weird, because I never thought I would be an only child. I never thought I would lose my younger sister, Candace. It's hard, because I'm still trying to be really normal about it, but people know. Everybody in my school knows what happened. And sometimes I feel like maybe I should have done something to stop it, but I know that I couldn't have, and that makes me really upset too, because I was supposed to be her sister. She couldn't have done anything to stop it, and my parents couldn't have done anything to stop it either. Just 8 months after my sister died, my parents spoke before the FDA about the dangers of antidepressant drugs. It was then I knew we weren't alone. It was then I knew there were stories to be told.
Hello, I'm Countess Downey.
She'd make you laugh because she'd come in her crazy outfits and fake eyelashes.
Candace always had a smile on her face.
I'd always put on music while I was getting ready for bed, and she used to knock on my wall because her room's right over there, and she'd knock on the wall and tell me to be quiet, and just little things like that.
And didn't she get on some mattress and go down the stairs?
Oh yeah! I tried to do it and I got caught. Yeah.
Her swim team was very important to her.
And was never the biggest swimmer, was never the strongest, but she gave it everything she had.
The beach was always something for the both of us. We both really, really loved the beach, and we'd get there in the middle of the night and she'd want to get right in the ocean.
I'll never be able to separate my feelings for the beach and my feelings for my daughter.
She was being very happy, being very competitive. She also had anxieties, mild general anxieties from taking tests, and to the point where she would just, what's the word I'm thinking of, have blocks or blocking.
We were feeling her frustration because we knew she knew the material. She studied hard. Her teachers were beginning to assume that she wasn't studying because her grades were not reflecting her knowledge.
The anxiety was dealt with by, first of all, visiting her general practitioner, who recommended that we see a psychiatrist.
He recommended both educational and psychological testing, both of which we had done. Educationally, she tested very high, but when she started getting questions that were more difficult for her, rather than taking a risk and getting the answer wrong, she just shut down completely.
And, certainly was able to diagnose that she was not depressed. She was very happy, very well adjusted, but occasionally she would have general anxiety.
And at that time, the psychiatrist decided to put her on a very small amount of Zoloft, and I wasn't happy about it. But he assured me it was a very small dose. Let's see how it goes. I took her back after 3 weeks, and he wanted to double it. And I said, no, you can't. How can you judge anything on 3 weeks? And so he agreed at that time not to double it, but it was not what he wanted to do.
I already take 4 pills every night, 2 sleeping pills and 2 antidepressants. How much more can I take? Caitlin.
She'd only been around 12 years, and trying to figure out who Caitlin was is, an interesting task because she was only 12.
She was a great kid with a great future who had dreams and hopes and wonderful imagination.
Hi, how are you today? I can't wave right now, but hi.
She seemed a lot older than she really was. Yeah. Like, I always was like, I don't know. I kind of looked up to her, even though, she was the same age as me.
She was the first person that I ever admitted that I liked a boy, and I thought it was such a big deal. But she was so nice about it. She would always try and get us to sit together.
She was always extra excited about Christmas, and we'd go through all the boxes and open up all the things, and we always had to argue over who got to put the angel on the top of the tree. So we usually ended up having both of us on either side, both of us have a hand, put it on there. She used to wake me up in the middle of the night and just ask random questions, like if I was stranded somewhere, what CD would I bring? She just would wake me up at 4 in the morning just to ask me that.
There's a whole series of events that happened over the summer. The biggest one was being assaulted in the park by a flasher who chased her home. There was financial stress in our home, and then I had a heart episode and came very, very close to death and was in the hospital for a while. And then 6th grade began. There was definitely a lot of stuff going on with fitting in and boyfriends. She mentioned to Glenn that she wanted to talk to a counselor, so she did. I think really for a period of weeks, she was going in pretty regularly to talk to the counselor at school. The counselor at school called Glenn and said, she's talking about hurting herself. You need to get her to professional help. We also were very aware of the sleep issues that she had had on and off for a couple of years. She would have periods of time where she was having trouble sleeping, and she was in the midst of that. And my contention to the social worker was, she's depressed because she can't sleep. She's having trouble sleeping. This is making her very depressed, in addition to all these things that had occurred over the summer. And I don't know how many times I went through a litany of all those things that had happened with the social worker, and who then immediately said she's depressed, she needs to be put on antidepressants. And I resisted. I did not want that. But he implied that I was not being a good parent if I didn't put her on those medications because they would help her feel better. I took her to the family doctor and said, if you could just do something to help her sleep, I really think that this would, it would take care of the depression. So he said, well, let's put her on Paxil. She took that for about a week, and it was clear that not only was she now not sleeping, but she was like a zombie during the day. We took her back to the family doctor, the family physician, and the family physician said, get her off immediately. When she went to the psychiatrist, she was put on Zoloft right away. So that was very shortly after she'd been off the Paxil. And then she quickly disintegrated. I mean, her personality did a 90-degree turn. It totally changed from a kid, that we've been describing to you to a child who felt like she was bad. She described herself as bad. She would make up stories about, all these bad things that she had done.
She always wanted to be by herself, and she didn't talk very much. Things didn't excite her. She just didn't seem to care about anything after the medication.
She fought through it too. In retrospect, we could see her fighting the effects of the drugs. She told one of her friends that, Caitlin just didn't feel like Caitlin on the drugs. She didn't like being on them, but she wanted to get better, and the doctors and everybody was telling her that this is what you need to do. So she was going along with the program, but she didn't like the way they made her feel. And everybody noticed her change in personality.
There was a plan at school for kids who had emotional problems. If she felt unsafe, if she felt like she needed to jump out the window or something, that she could go to the office and sit in the office where she could be safe and do her work. Well, the first day back to school after Christmas break, she didn't feel safe and she went to the office. But on the second day back to school, she got a detention slip from her second period teacher because she hadn't completed the work from the day before because she'd gone to the office. And then she apparently, according to her friends, she cried when the teacher gave her that, but the teacher didn't know she was crying or didn't choose to respond to it. And this is a kid who never got in trouble at school and never had problems like that at school, never had gone to detention. And she walked into, after second period, went to the bathroom and took the shoelaces from her shoes and hung herself.
But it was just too much for her. She was only 12 years old, a very sensitive, creative, sweet, talented 12-year-old. She wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. And she was trying to hang on to life. She wasn't a hopeless, despondent child, even under the influence of the drugs. They were driving her in that direction, but she was still trying to reach out for life.
Like, it didn't have to go that way. There was no reason that had to happen.
Bright light was just snuffed out. It doesn't make any sense.
Summer was ending, and we were both getting ready for school. Candace was so excited to start 7th grade. This was the first time in 7 years we'd be going to different schools.
At the end of the summer, when she was getting ready to start 7th grade, Candace and her doctor decided together that transitions were going to be more difficult, the workload was going to be stronger in 7th grade than 6th grade, and that she probably should have the medication increased at that time. And so he increased her Zoloft to 25 milligrams from 12.5 milligrams. And when I was very concerned about that, he said, "What are you worried about? Kids take 100 to 200 milligrams a day without any problem. It's safe, it's effective." January 4th of 2004, that she accidentally got 25 milligrams too much, and it made her very shaky. And she was speaking louder and very fast, and I called the doctor and said that she had accidentally taken 25 milligrams too much. They suggested I call poison control, which I did. Poison control said take her to the hospital for observation.
First of all, they gave her 2 shots of medicine that caused her to react to immediately. Her heart rate shot up to 180 beats per minute, and she was starting to hallucinate. And then they shot her up with something else, and it just got worse from there.
In retrospect, we know that you can combine Zoloft with sedatives, but we had no way of knowing that at the time. And what they did to Candace then put her in a tailspin where she became psychotic. She started hallucinating. She wasn't able to eat or sleep. So here's a child that was just supposed to be monitored, and she ended up in pediatric intensive care.
2 days later, they gave her 100 milligrams of Zoloft, where she was really hallucinating. She was seeing things that weren't there. She was talking to people that weren't there.
At no time were we ever warned that there were issues surrounding the medication she'd been given. No one ever warned us that the psychosis would continue and could be life-threatening. The hospital told us we had to see the psychiatrist within 2 days. She went to the doctor on Friday. He talked to her, asked her if she was feeling anxious, feeling motivated. He thought she seemed great and said, "Terrific, come back in 2 weeks."
Yeah. I'd say this is probably my angriest journal I have. Even just for the, the fact of the matter on the cover, it says, "Bite me." But at the same time on the back, it says, "I'm with you." So, it's kind of a, anger on one side, but, at the same time, I've still got my own back. I've got a lot of warnings of not, even reading my book. I have entries as far back as when I was 10 years old. See, April 6, 1998. Today I was having a good day. It was cool. Spring break is coming up and I'm happy. 6th grade, about 11, 12, that's when things started to really go downhill.
Things at school were not going really well. He was being picked on by kids. He was being teased. And he didn't handle that very well at all.
Now I'll start crying like an ass. There's no love, no money, no sense of feeling anymore. And I wrote, "I hate my life. I feel like shit. My dad hates me."
So we put him in counseling. It was about 6 months into this counseling that she said, he really needs some help. We need to put him on an antidepressant. I think you need to take him into a doctor and have him put on an antidepressant.
Wow, they have pills that will make you happy. They make you feel, better. They'll pull me out of this low self-esteem and I'll be a normal teenager. People will want to be my friends now.
I took him into our family doctor. That's what the psychologist suggested I do, was take him into the family doctor.
He asked basic questions like, how long have you been feeling this way? What reasons do you think you're feeling this way? And of course I couldn't say, Dad's drinking was making me feel this way, and being teased at school is making me feel this way, and I'm scared to tell people I'm gay and that's why I feel this way.
He says, let's go ahead and try putting him on Paxil. And I said, okay. And so does he need any tests to see if the levels are right in his blood or anything? Oh, no. Just it's by the way he feels. If he feels good, then it's a good dose. But if it doesn't, then we'll have to raise it.
He said there would be small symptoms like dry mouth and, some insomnia, not too much. I was going to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, or finally falling asleep at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I would wake up at about 4 and couldn't fall asleep. There was other issues of my depression starting to feel worse. Things started to feel like, the teasing felt like it was getting worse, even though it was the same as it was before. I was fighting more with my family members. I was crying more. And I'd say after about a week and maybe a few days, I just stopped taking the Paxil.
There was a lot of cutting, and he covered it quite well.
Self-mutilation went up again. At this point, it was only maybe once or twice a week, but now it was every day. I was cutting my arms, the back of my hands. I was making eraser burns in my hands till it would bleed. I would cut my legs, I would burn my legs, I would cut my torso. I would cut the tips of my fingers just so that it would be a constant reminder, a constant pain. Actually, this is February 21st of 2002 when I was on Zoloft. I wrote, "Dear Journal, let me die, God, please, kill me. I want to end it now. Hang yourself. You've been here too long. Slit your wrists. Die." My family had left, and I was in the living room of my house, and there was a hook in one of the main beams. So I had a belt that my friend had given to me it was a braided belt. And I pulled on it a few times, and I was like, okay, this has got to be strong enough. So I hooked one end of it onto, or I double looped it onto the hook, and then I slipped the buckle around my neck so it would easily slide. And I slowly lowered myself down so that at first I would go numb, and then I would pass out and just eventually suffocate.
I think it was after Jason's fourth suicide attempt that we finally got to the point where, you know what, the drugs, the psychologists, everybody's not working. You know, there is something that's not working here, and we need to find out how to make this work. We need to see if we can't help Jason learn how to manage his depression without the drugs, because it didn't seem like they were helping him at all.
I met with my doctor at the WC, and he said that Remeron did not have desirable effects, so he wanted to switch me to Effexor. If, you know, you can call your dad real quick for me, we will go ahead and start today on switching your medication from Remeron to Effexor. So I said, you know, okay, you know, he's the doctor, he knows what's best. And I called my dad and I said, Dad, the doctor wants to change my medication from Remeron to Effexor. And he says, no, we're not going to change your medication. He said, let me go ahead and talk to him.
Quo and I discussed it with Jason and told him, you know, we don't think this is working. At that point, Quo got on the phone with Ann Tracy and called her and said, she's a real close friend of ours and has, you know, gone to church with us. We've known her for 15 years. And he says, I need some help. You know, I've tried these antidepressants. They're not working. We need some help with Jason before he ends up successfully killing himself.
And I was sick to know that I had been so busy nationwide trying to help other families that right here in my own neighborhood, close friends were going through the same thing without me even realizing that it had been going on for some time.
I wasn't really sure. I was kind of still in belief of, you know, the doctor. I was kind of thinking, well, I need these, Dad. I need to be on these for this amount of time before, you know, I can get off.
As we talked, and I could tell Jason everything he'd gone through on the antidepressants, he just sat there saying, well, yeah, I went through that. Yes, that's how I felt. Yes, this happened. Yes, that happened. And he could see that I really understood, that I knew what the drugs did. And I hadn't been involved during that period, so he knew that surely it was caused by the drugs.
It wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be, you know, with the doctors. Well, at least with my therapist and with staff, but my doctor, the one that was so pro-medication that, you know, he kept saying, you know, well, when do you turn 18? And I said, I'll be 18, you know, May of 2005. And I remember him just, you know, kind of staring at me and said, well, Godspeed. He said, just be careful. He said, I hope you can make it that long without medication. And, you know, I'd really love to see him now and, you know, tell him, you know, look, I've been almost 2 years free of medication and almost 2 years free of suicide as well.
Dance has been a huge outlet for me. I can dance my feelings out. The dance company is there for support, and I always feel the best when I'm dancing. Since now I'm dancing with a message, it means even more to me. The dance I'm doing, it's happy if you watch the movement, but at the same time, it's really sad. It's about my sister and like missing her, and the way we thought of it was like a scrapbook, because at the beginning they show pictures, And then like the dance is like filling in the scrapbook, and then there's one final picture of Candace, and that's like the end of the scrapbook.
Dear God, read the letter that she wrote by the light overhead. I'm just a girl all alone, trying to make it on her own.
I've always said that I really would have given anything if Ray had been taking some narcotic, crack, on cocaine, whatever, shooting up something, anything that would give me a sign.
He was just the happiest kid, and if he could make you smile, he was happy too, you know. He was the kind of person that if he liked something, people wanted to do what he was doing, you know, and I guess especially with brothers. I mean, you know, if he was playing poker, they want to play poker. You know, if he's playing chess, I want to play chess. You know, will you teach me how? I remember Ray came to us and said, I want to focus on tennis. He played in tournaments. I never saw him get upset on the court.
Well, the last words that Ray said to me was that I should never quit tennis because I had the heart and I really wanted to play and stuff like that.
He was a practical joker, always. Like I said, he's into magic tricks. He would, I remember he would get the little poop cushion and throw it under the cushion, you know, and you sit down and some noise, you wonder what that was. I mean, just stuff like that all the time. And
this was his hat. He wore it everywhere he went. Like, he was known for his hat. Like, everybody knew that this was his hat. And that, I mean, this was like part of him. He didn't have like one main group. He was friends with like everybody.
Ray got involved in art and just loved drawing. He always would just sit around the house and just draw anything and everything. He loved to be loved. He would do anything for people to love him. Monday, November the 4th, 2002, I received a call from my son, Ray Jr., who's 15 years old. And he was standing in this spot, and he called me, and I picked up the phone, and he said, Dad, are you coming home for lunch today? And I said, maybe. I'll give you a call in a few minutes and let you know. And so hung up the phone. I received another call at 11:39, and Ray's voice was trembling. And he said, Dad, I love you. And for some reason at that time, having no notion whatsoever why I'm thinking this, I just knew that Ray was going to kill himself. And I said, Ray, what's wrong? And he didn't answer me. I said, please don't hang up the phone. And, anyway, I begged him not to hang up the phone, but he said, what? And then I heard the phone click. He had thrown the phone down and ran out the door. And as I sped home, I came down the main street towards our house, and there were many police cars lined up. He said, there's a teenager out in the middle of the street. We have a gun, and he shot himself. Some of his friends came to see us, and they revealed what truly happened. And they told me that Ray and them that came had been taking antidepressants for fun.
He just told me like that when he was taking it, that he was just doing it to get high, and like that it was weird feeling and stuff.
One of the friends had gotten them out of his parents' medicine cabinet, and they'd gotten more from other medicine cabinets. They took probably a few at a time. They increased the dosage. It made them feel good and happy. I searched the house. I went upstairs. I looked at his room. I went through all his clothes. I looked behind cabinets. I looked everywhere, behind picture frames, you name it, I looked. Could not find anything. Lisa searched. I just had to hold them in my hands to know. Lisa told me that she found them. Lisa took the pills and searched on the internet and in her medical books and found out they were indeed Zoloft and Effexor. She found this plastic bag. It was hidden in a pair of his tennis shorts, a brand new pair of tennis shorts that had never been worn before. There were like 40 to 60, 40, 50, 60 of these pills. If I could have any relief at the time, I had somewhat knowing that something caused him to do this, because I know this wasn't Ray. He would never do that. He was the happiest kid in the world.
We never would have thought in a million years that Ray was the type that would have experimented in this way. Of course, we don't think so with our other children either, but that's irrelevant now. We just assume that we have to watch for everything, whereas before we never felt that way.
And if any parent thinks that it couldn't happen to them, they're in the same situation we were. We were in that exact spot. I would sit there and argue with anybody and say it couldn't happen to us. Our kids would never do that.
Okay, maybe I should go to school like this. Because if I were to put these on, take them off. Okay. This is Beauregard, and he's a schnoodle.
She's like me, one of a kind. She doesn't like the things that everybody else likes. She doesn't adhere to the norm. She doesn't do things to be part of the clique at school. She's strong and independent.
My name is Tanya. Danielle Brooks. That's me, Mom.
Even if it's going to make me mad, she tells me everything. She absolutely has no secrets.
Tanya is like me when I was young, and that I'm not the kind that has lots of friends, the social butterfly, and I consider that normal. So I don't see that as a problem, but her and her mother saw that as a problem.
I would rather have been in my room by myself with nobody here. It kind of sucks when you can't go to get something to eat because there's people standing outside. I was craving Subway. And I went to go to Subway. I drove up, and there was people outside from my school. And they looked at me, and I was by myself, so I drove away. Because it was that uncomfortable just for them to look at me. I didn't want to go inside.
Tanya's self-conscious of herself, of her body, I think. And I've always been the same way. So we took her to the doctor, like she went to find out, what would make her more outgoing. And I thought that the doctor would take her to, or send her to a psychiatrist or psychologist, and then they prescribed her Paxil.
So I went to our doctor, and she was like, "What's wrong?" I told her I was feeling uncomfortable around a lot of people, and she was like, "Well, it sounds like you have anxiety. How about I prescribe you some Paxil?" And I was like, I saw the commercials. The commercials are, you take this and you'll be all better, because that's what we say. So I was like, okay, sure.
I wasn't familiar with antidepressants or those type medications, and I didn't think anything of it.
Didn't give us any warnings other than, it might make her sick at her stomach or didn't give us anything to be worried about. You know, you want to believe your doctors.
When I said it made me feel good, it made me feel better. Like I was weighted down by whatever had happened during the day. And when I did that, it made it all go away.
She looked medicated. She did seem to be happier, but only in a sense of someone who drinks becomes happier when they drink. It was that type of happy, I thought. It was a medicated happier.
Well, she dyed her hair, so therefore she was getting a little more outgoing, which, you know, at her age, right after she got on the medicine, she dyed her hair. She was out more with her friends, actually, she was. But I think it was more of her wanting to be away from the house. She had 3 wrecks on the 3 months that she was on it.
I don't remember not being myself because in my mind I was that same person. But to other people, I was really mean. I was overly blunt. And I hurt people's feelings a lot more than usual. I'd get to these like depression type states to where everything was horrible. My mom has this diabetic needle. And cuticle cutters are really old when they're like scissors. And I sat on my bed, and I guess it was just easy access. Because I thought that if I cut a big enough hole, then what I did would go away. So I started like digging in on my bed. But then I decided that I didn't want to get my bed dirty because my mom would get mad. So I went to the bathroom because I didn't want her to get mad at me.
There was just blood everywhere. I didn't, you know, I didn't see her leg right off. Oh, I just saw the blood and I started going, well, where'd you cut yourself? You know, I thought maybe glass had fallen, you know, kids get hurt. And then I'm trying to see where she got cut. It wasn't a cut. She was well on her way to cut her leg off. It was huge, huge hole. And it was really deep. And there was no skin, nothing. It was just all over the bathroom. And her little hands was just covered in blood. When I start looking up the medicine that she's on, I didn't find warnings right off. I found cases. I found cases of kids killing themselves. But I didn't want her on anything else after I read up on Paxil. I didn't want her on any medicine. Because it was the medicine that did this to her. I know it was. This was not my kid. It wasn't my kid for months.
I'm a lot happier and I'm a lot more open with my family. People need to stop depending on drugs to fix their problems, and they need to learn how to change their lives first. Because most of it is the way your lifestyle is. If you start to change that, then you'll see improvements in your behavior and the way that you feel. Everyone's going by, this will make you feel better, this will make you fall asleep faster, this will do this and this will do that, when it could be many different things other than that. You don't need to be on medication for stuff like that. It happens to everybody.
The week before Candace died, she, of course, was in the hospital for a few days and then came back on Friday to school.
She came in and she had a big smile on her face, and I just ran over and gave her a big hug.
We were so happy to see her, and we had so much fun with her that day too. So
she walked into my classroom that morning and I said, "Oh, Candace," I said, "we're having a test today." And of course she had missed the week before. I said, so why don't you just wait? And she said, no, I'll take it now. And I said, okay, fine. So she took the test, and I believe she got a high 80s. She did very well. But she was fine during the day. There were no signs of her being anxious or upset, or the other children were so thrilled to see her. And she was thrilled to see them. You know, they were all running up and down the halls, and, you know, Candace is back, Candace is back.
I had taken her to her team's basketball game. She was too weak to play. She really still wasn't eating or sleeping very well. I stayed with her the whole time. She told her team she wasn't strong enough to play, but she wanted to be she wanted to be there to cheer them on.
She was fine when they came home, and she said, "We won."
And she curled up on the couch with her father. And I was going out to lunch with a friend, and when I left, Candace was curled up in her father's arms, and they were laughing, watching Animal Planet.
Matthew went with her friend Holly for lunch, and I asked Candace if she wanted to go with me to the grocery store. She goes, "No, I'm gonna stay home with Caroline." And I came back, and I just assumed, because I heard her talking on the phone asking for Carrie, that she was down at Carrie's house.
She tried to contact a friend of hers. This friend wasn't home, but she talked to the father about 20 minutes, and they laughed on the phone. And
Matthew came home, and she says, "Where's Candace?" So I think she's at Caroline's house. I mean, Carrie's house. And Matthew went upstairs, and I was making dinner, and I just heard Matthew scream, "No!" And we called the paramedics, and she was gone.
she died by hanging.
We were talking about my friend Rachel's an only child, and she acts like an only child. And I was saying how I don't think I'd ever turn into an only child. Just I was with her for 12 years, and like, it's hard being without her, and she was like such an important part of my life, and it makes me so mad what happened. And I was talking to my friends at dance about this. Like, I love my dance, and it's so important to me. But there shouldn't have to be a dance about my little sister. There shouldn't have to be a memorial dance about her. And it's just not fair at all.
The Vineyard, in my opinion, is the most special place on earth because everybody is just so laid back and nice that you can do anything on the Vineyard.
And we knew we had to get away because of her just being so stressed out by the whole situation. The Vineyard was the first place that we thought of. We had a great family. We had an ideal family life. We had really no problems. We had 2 healthy children, twin girls.
I love Alex so much, even though we fight like every day. Every minute, I should say. I love her so much, and I know that deep down she loves me, even though she always takes my shoes, but whatever.
I think our biggest fear at that point was maybe bullying in school, and you know, what would happen.
I'll show you in a second.
Ow. And then do I put these goggles on?
Yep.
Little did we know that our whole world would be turned upside down. Towards the end of the summer in 2002, Devin just started changing a little bit.
Started off when I thought I was like fat.
We actually had seen her doctor for just a general checkup, and we didn't really think much of it.
So then I started not eating. Well, I decreased a lot of it, and then I sort of went to like just not eating at all, really.
She was restless, like, you know, she was just exercising more, maybe swimming underwater more than she would, or running around a field to the point where, you know, she couldn't stop herself.
I didn't really understand it because I just thought, you know, it was like one of those passing things that I was just going through, like something normal that every girl basically does.
And Dennis and I started getting very, very concerned at that point. And that's when we brought it up to her doctor. you know, we didn't understand what was happening. He at first couldn't tell if it was an eating disorder because of the weight loss, or if it was obsessive compulsive disorder.
I saw a lot of therapists and doctors, and they put me on a lot of medication, and they did a lot of therapy.
And so within about 3 weeks or so, he prescribed Paxil. She was put on Paxil. She needed to be hospitalized because she had lost a great deal of weight. The first night that she was admitted, the nurse came into the room and told me that the doctors had put her under an anorexia protocol. And I said to this nurse, well, you must be mistaken. She's 9 years old.
I went to the hospital for probably around a month, maybe a little less, and the whole experience was just awful.
She started getting very aggressive. She started hitting her leg, hitting herself. And
at first we didn't realize what was happening. We didn't pick up on that immediately. I think at first we thought she was just bumping into things, but then we realized that it was a little more than that.
The first full day that she was home from the overnight hospital, she had her first outburst. I actually congratulated her that she was getting this out of her. But what we didn't realize was that these outbursts, this rage, this drug-induced rage, would actually become part of our daily life.
I was so bad that sometimes I couldn't even be in the same room with someone like my sister, because I would just go after her, or I would go after someone because I was so violent.
When that rage is on, it's demonic. And I mean, it's just, I mean, she really tries to hurt you in any way she can. She would scratch, hurt herself. She would scratch, bite, headbutt. Literally, I would, if I didn't secure her quickly enough, I would get scratches on my face, and I'd go to work and I'd say, "Oh, basketball."
I was not like any of my friends, because they were all normal and easygoing and laid back, but I was really touchy and tired and fatigued and really just angry at the world and my parents. And I mean, I made my mom cry sometimes because I was just so violent.
I would ask her questions every now and then, like, why do you do these things? And she would usually just get mad at me and start throwing things at me or something.
This happened for a good 6 months, and during that time we would call the doctors almost on a daily basis and say, help us out here. We don't know what to do. We're trying to keep her from hurting herself and hurting us and hurting her sister. And the only thing we were told was, come in and we'll show you how to restrain her. If anything, they would say, we need to go up on the meds. We need to go up on this. And
yeah, it's not strong enough. It's not working. So we'll raise the dosage.
The other thing that started happening while she was hospitalized was that she started talking to us about suicide. And we had no idea what was happening. We would say to the doctors, why is she asking us these questions? This was a happy 9-year-old child who started developing all these different behaviors, but now she's talking about suicide. I just happened to be walking by her bedroom, and we really kept a close eye on her. She was 10 years old, and she was really never out of our sight.
I had a window in my room, and sometimes I'd think of jumping out or killing myself.
There she was by the window. The window was open, and she was half out and half in. She had one leg out the window and the other leg was in the room.
I mean, there was more, but that was the worst because I felt so bad and different.
We would do an awful lot of research. We'd get on the internet and try to figure out what was going on. We also started researching infectious diseases such as Lyme disease and pandas. We were just told to forget about that that's not what was happening to her. Through the grace of God, we were led to Dr. Charles Ray Jones in Connecticut, who is the only pediatrician who specializes in Lyme disease in the country and maybe in the world.
The people I see here are children who have been either misdiagnosed or failed to be diagnosed as having appropriate tick-borne diseases, and Devin was one of them.
So what Dr. Jones thought is when the symptoms first started becoming severe back in, the summer, late summer of 2002, she may have been bitten by a tick, and it caused her OCD to become exacerbated. And so hence that's why she started losing weight and why she started jumping around. And then when she was put on the SSRI medication, that worsened the Lyme disease.
Now, we have over 7,000 children here with Lyme disease from every state and from every continent. I'd say that at least 80% of them have been either misdiagnosed or inadequately treated because the people failed to consider the fact that there can be severe neuropsychiatric components with any infectious disease, not just Lyme.
Once she was off all of the drugs, that was the end of the aggression. That was the end of the suicidal thoughts. Her cognitive skills and abilities, which had been greatly diminished, have come back full force. She's now getting all A's again in school.
I have like amazing friends, and I have a much better relationship with my family, and I'm way more happier, and I play like basketball, soccer, field hockey, lacrosse.
She is happy.
She's
again.
happy again, which is
And
so wonderful to see.
now we can hug her again. She'll actually let us get close enough to give her hugs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, it seems so obvious that these drugs were doing this to our daughter.
And we almost lost her. What we decided to do as a family is, we decided that we needed to be proactive about what happened to us as a family and try to prevent it from, to happening to other families. And so Alex and I testified. We've testified twice before the FDA on suicidality issues in children who are given SSRI medication.
First hearing that went to an FDA hearing, it was so sad to hear these stories. Like, we actually were lucky because so many stories about them killing themselves and other people, it was just so sad. And I thought, well, every person counts. So I figured if I help them, maybe I can get the attention of other people too. I mean, everyone can.
She's right. Everyone counts. Following the testimonies of so many families along with concerned medical professionals, the FDA was forced to bring about historical changes. Some previously suppressed clinical trials and reports have now been made public, and current studies tell us millions of teenagers are abusing prescription drugs. On October 16, 2004, the FDA issued black box warnings, the strongest warnings that can be issued, demanding the drug companies clearly state antidepressant drugs can cause suicidal thoughts and actual suicide in children and teenagers. Because of Ray and Tanya, Devin and Jason, Caitlin and Candace, lives will be saved.
Who am I? Said the girl on the corner, waiting by the bus stop all alone. Photographs held tightly in her hands. She is just so far away from home. So she said to the driver, take me from this hell. I once had some stories, now there's nothing left to Just a girl all alone, trying to make it on her own. So she holds onto the horizon, in the distance red bands into blue. So caught up in sweet perfection, hoping that faith will see her through. So she said to the driver, take me from this hell. I once had some stories, now there's nothing left to tell. Dear God, read the letter that she wrote by the light overhead. I'm just a girl all alone, trying to make it on her own. Dear God, read the letter that she wrote by the light overhead. I'm just a girl all alone, trying to make it on her own, trying to make it on her own, trying to make it on her own, trying to make it on